When you're lying in bed at night, do you ever randomly remember some relatively minor social missteps or poorly chosen words you did/said years earlier? And then beat yourself up over it even though it really wasn't a big deal? If so, what happened? I went to Dairy Queen with my daughter. She brought along her kitten. The cute girl at the walk-up window asked my daughter what the kitten's name was. Princess was the response. Smiling and feebly attempting to make conversation, I said today to indicate that my daughter changed the cat's name frequently. I got a dirty look and the girl left the window to go make whatever cold treat we had ordered. It wasn't until later, on the walk home, that I realized that she thought I was telling her to hurry the hell up and make my order. Still haunts me years later for some reason. Sometimes I'm on the other side where I misunderstand something and give the person a dirty look only to realize what they really meant later and then feel mortified. When I walked down the aisle at my wedding, I was so nervous and focused on not tripping that I did not acknowledge my dad. I didn't realize this until I saw the video my aunt had made for me. You can see my dad lean in to give me a kiss on the cheek, but I just keep walking. He kinda shrugs and then goes to sit down. It's been 18 years and this still flashes through my head when I'm trying to fall asleep. Also, that time I was trying to get to the school bus and the sidewalk was icy, so I slipped and fell really hard on my butt. The kids on the bus laughed at me, so I chose to sit there with my head down, wishing I could disappear, while the bus drove away and I walked a mile home, yes, in the snow, uphill, both ways. Yeah, my dad and I both forgot to hug each other. We did it during the rehearsal and everything, but the day of I think we were both trying not to trip, so we forgot. He felt worse about it than I did. 4th grade classroom, we were having a face-off between students on who could name the capital of whichever state our teacher named. I had been on a roll getting a few correct in a row. Then the teacher says Kentucky. With all of the enthusiasm and seriousness in the world, I screamed Frankfurt. Everyone was dying laughing except for me, at the time. Looking back, it cracks me up that I was so upset about it. You were pretty much right. You should tell my teacher that because she said I lost. I was in the 4th grade and it was Valentine's Day. I was the new kid in school and this one boy had been picking on me all year. My 10-year-old self was very non-confrontational, so I wrote a paragraph on the back of his Nerd's Valentine explaining that I don't like it when he's mean to me, and I don't understand why he has to be. He couldn't read my handwriting and brought it to the teacher who made me read it aloud to both of them. I think about that day every day of my life. He even ended up finding me online and contacting me to apologize a few years ago, but all I can think of is the cringe. That's actually pretty nice of him to apologize years later. Doesn't change anything, but it is good that he changed. And plus, like you/Cowfeeder said, I think it was pretty brave of you to do that. I was visiting Portland for a wedding that lined up with my birthday as well. We went out to celebrate and finished the night at a karaoke bar. Realizing I'm too drunk to sing I Pick My Name Is by Eminem as my song to perform. There's 2 versions of that song. One is the original release, the other tamed down, which you most commonly hear today. The woman controlling the music put on the original, and off I went. One of the lines at the end is running over lesbians in a spaceship while they screaming at me, "Let's just be friends." I finished the song and I'm met by applause from my friends and one other table. The rest of the place is silent. The DJ goes, "Nice job." Don't know if it was the best choice for Gay Women's Night though. And at that moment I wanted to leave my skin. This is very painful. My party trick in high school was that I could rap the fast part of Rap God. When I was a freshman in college, I was hanging out with my friends one night. We were all pretty drunk, but I was probably the most wasted. So I decided to bust out my old party trick, "Hey guys, turn on Rap God." Somewhere out there is a video of me lying wasted on the floor of a dorm room, rapping Rap God as fast as my drunk little mouth would go. Chloe, if you're reading this, can you delete that video for me? In 7th grade, a cute girl asked me to sit next to her. I said my mom won't let me sit next to girls. My mom said no such thing. If you said cute girls, you'd have been a total baller. So close. That level of smoothness eludes me to this day. I accidentally mixed up an inside joke with the wrong friend group with disastrous results. Friend group number 1, the joke was when someone calls and asks who's all there, we would add Daryl to the list of names. Daryl wasn't a real person. The joke wasn't really funny and made no sense out of context, but I guess that's why it was an inside joke. Friend group number 2, I was hanging out playing some drinking games with a bunch of people that I hadn't hung out with in a while. It was a kind of get-together to remember a friend that they had who had recently died in a car accident. I didn't know him that well, but I was always down to party. Anyway, the phone rings, and the person who answered started listing off names. Sorting my cards for another round of presidents and assholes, I offhandedly said, "Hey, and Daryl." It was the typical record scratch moment where everyone stopped and looked at me. Daryl was the name of the friend who had just died. This happened in 2002, and I still think about it all the time. Oh man, I have a mixed up inside joke scenario. It wasn't me, it was my neighbor. My neighbor is morbidly obese and my mom is Korean, and they joke with each other about it. My neighbor makes racist comments to my mom, she makes fun of my neighbor's weight. It's just part of their friendship. They often did it in public too, but it was always obvious when they were standing next to each other that it was inside joke. At one point my neighbor was out with her husband, they're both white. She was at a checkout counter when she blithely remarked about all the damn Koreans taking over the region. The checkout lady just stares at her. Then the husband leaned over and said, "It's not as funny when Dragon Meme's mom isn't standing next to you." Cue my horrified neighbor desperately trying to explain that she wasn't a racist, that it's an inside joke. My friend is Korean, which of course just made her look worse. My mom lost it when she heard the story. When I was in the 4th grade, I lived in the middle of nowhere and there was practically no minorities, just white country people. This Mexican family had just moved in and could barely speak any English, and I befriended one of the kids my age in school. He came over to my place and we were both joking around about his bad English. Just doing what kids do. I would pretend to speak with his accent and then he would copy, and it was silly, stupid, and innocent. My mom told me I was being really inconsiderate and how uncool it was to make fun of someone for not being able to speak English. I felt terrible. The next day at school my friend came up to me and started joking with me again, but I just shook my head and looked down at my desk in embarrassment. He had no idea what was wrong and I was too young and dumb to be able to explain my behavior to him. As I grew older, I spent probably 20 years thinking about that day and how much of a shit I was to be friendly one day and then without explaining anything just stop talking to him out of embarrassment. I felt really bad about it for a long time and often laid awake at night thinking about it. I ended up finding him on Facebook about a year ago and we friend each other, so I told him how bad I felt about it and apologized. He just laughed it off and said it was no big deal and he was still really thankful to find someone as friendly as me when he didn't know anyone here. He said he figured my mom had said something to me about it and it never bothered him. I don't know if maybe he was just being nice to me or not, but it was such a relief to hear it. It really felt like a weight had been lifted off of me. This is the most wholesome thing I've ever read. I've always been thankful that here in Latin America we make all the dumb racist jokes and mean absolutely no ill will behind them. And your mom is woke as fuck, wow.